the microphone to people when they want to get it. All right, can everybody hear me? Yes. You want me to use the microphone?
Well, I think that in order for us
Is this better?
and like for the Zoom people to hear, you have to be online.
How about this? Is this better? Yeah. It's better if I do it this way.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Well, my name is Bob Matters, and I'm with the Moose Lake Indivisible. We have been active for, oh gosh, since forever. I didn't start with the group until June sometime. And so we decided to, at this point, well, all right, so at first I'd like to apologize for a little bit of a problem that we had in that, and I don't think I have to apologize. I was ready to take the blame for not being at church.
You got to stop. You're not apologizing.
Okay, I won't. So I was back this last summer, I was in Duluth and feeling particularly despondent like all of us have at some time during this horrible period. When I came across a small lawn sign, which was just one sentence and was attributed to the legendary Nobel laureate Elie Wiesel. And that one sentence read, there may be times when we are helpless to prevent injustice, but there must never be a time when we fail to protest. And that's been pretty much our credo so far. But it's a new season, so we can do more than protest. It's just 11 months until the election. So it's the time to choose our candidates. We can take action beyond just protesting, although we will continue to protest because we've got to be visible. The visible part of it is visible. And in fact, we had such fun with that. I think that might be a new way of campaigning. Once we've decided on a candidate, and then of course our work won't stop with just choosing the candidate. We've been pretty passive in recent times. I think that's part of the reason why we're in the position we're in, is because we just haven't been active. So maybe we can thank Trump for that. I don't know. That one thing brought us all together. So that's important. So a few weeks ago, we decided informally with a meeting that we would have roughly once a month, that somebody should contact the prospective candidates or the candidates for Congress. And this man next to me, Cramer, that's spelled with a C, Cyle with a C, and Cramer with a C, seemed to be the only viable candidate. He actually has an online presence. He's got a platform which presents a very well reasoned and thought out plan for not only his candidacy but for his time in office should he become elected. And so I contacted him and asked him, can you come and talk with us? And he said, yeah, sure. It'd be great. So that's why he's here. I think that he's a very capable person. He grew up in Faribault. He was the first person in his family to go to college. He was raised by his grandparents. He was in high school. He didn't plan of going to college. I understand, but he took the SAT test and they thought, oh, well, looks like he's got some prospects. So he decided to join the Army National Guard, take advantage of the GI Bill. He decided on Hamlin University, although I think he should have picked a school a couple miles further south on Snelling. But anyhow, he ended up in Hamlin, and that's okay. That was my dad's alma mater, so it's a good choice. But it was also propitious because he ran into his wife, his future wife. And he spent 2 years working for a concrete products company in Wisconsin. And marketing, and decided after the first election of Trump that this isn't right, he's got to get more involved. So we went back to the Hamlin campus, the Mitchell Hamlin Law School, where he got a degree in law, practices.
Yeah, but it's too low.
So he's constantly taking on the money interest in favor of the work. So he practices what he preaches, and he's now lives in Chicago City with his wife, who is a family physician, and 2 young daughters. One is just 3 months old, and the other is 4 years old. So
Actually, flip it. 4 months old and 3 years old. It's hard to keep track.
Yeah, it's hard to keep track. But do you remember when over the last few months when we chronologically advantaged protesters lamented the absence of the youth? Well, here he is. We've been looking for you, Kyle. So please welcome Cyle Cramer for Congress.
Should I stand up out of the camera, or should I just stay sitting? Great. Thank you. Is there a way to turn it up? Or I can just talk closer to it? All right.
Whatever you're comfortable.
All right. I'll just stick here somewhere in here. And then if I stand up, I'll start walking around too much. I'll fall off the camera. Well, it's the camera. You gotta look at the camera.
Everybody wake up. Hi.
So that was a very good background of mine, so there's not much to say anymore. No, I still have a lot to say. So I think one thing that really makes me interested in service, and that's the primary reason why I'm doing this, is this idea of service, is I grew up living with my grandparents, and they were working class people, and we relied on a lot of the programs that are under attack today. So when I was 10 years old, my grandpa collapsed with congestive heart failure. Really lucky that he had survived for several more years after that. But essentially, I'm 10 years old, and we're relying on Social Security, free school lunches, medical assistance, all of these sorts of programs, and a good public education. That at that age, I just kind of took for granted. I didn't really have to second guess being able to go to the doctor, being able to have a healthy lunch for school. And as I got older, and I realized that how much these were helping me, I wanted to be able to pay my country back. So in October of my senior year in high school, I was still 17, I got parental consent and enlisted in the Army National Guard. Just a couple weeks after graduating, shipped off for 3 months of basic training, and another 3 months of training after that. And used the GI Bill to go to college. And a lot of my life was just kind of going one step at a time, figuring out where I'm going to end up, because nobody in my family had a higher education. What going to college meant, what after meant, was just, let's see what happens. And so I met my wife at Hamlin. She was an incredible student. She knew exactly where she wanted to go in life. So like, you know what, I'll follow you. So she went to medical school in central Wisconsin. She grew up in the town of central Wisconsin of 450 people. So she wanted to practice rural medicine. She saw what it was like in her community, not having medical care nearby, and she wanted to try to bring that to a community. So that's how we ended up in this district, was for her to work at a small clinic in Cambridge and draw people in from the rural area around there. And yeah, with the first Trump election, I just saw everything going on, poor government administration. Even if some of what he had to say might have been compelling, he just couldn't even get it done. He would change government regulations that would immediately be overturned because the process just wasn't done right. And so I decided, you know what? I want to figure out how to do this right. And I went to law school. After graduating, started working in labor law, representing unionized workers against billion-dollar corporations. And through that process, I just saw a lot of things such as hundreds of millions of dollars of stock buybacks while individual workers are struggling to get by, and VP pay packages, and all this sort of thing, while just the average person is struggling to get by. And that's been a really big focus of mine and something I try to communicate. I think we hear a lot in the public, on the news from other politicians about inequality, let's tax the billionaires, all of that. But ultimately, my goal isn't to raise a bunch of revenue for the federal government. I'd rather that the billionaires pay the people that are making the money more, and giving them better benefits, and just having the workers have a bigger share of their pie. And that's just a really big focus of mine. And another thing that I've really focused on this campaign is trying to find common sense solutions that hopefully sooner than later we can change and adjust. So healthcare prices are skyrocketing, our hospitals are closing. I grew up in a town of 24,000 people, and I just learned a few weeks ago that there are maternity centers closing. That's where I was born, that's where the best man at my wedding was born. That's where my cousins from 20 miles out of town were born. I have no idea where people are gonna go. And so I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to it. I just wanna look into, well, how can we fix this? What are the policies? What can we change? And in 1997, there was a law passed that helped bring rural healthcare access. However, there were restrictions put in place, maybe common sense restrictions. Let's limit these hospitals to 25 hospital beds. You don't need a small community with 200 hospital beds. But now it's 2025, our populations are different, our medical systems are different, and those restrictions that were put in place 28 years ago just aren't really working for our communities anymore. So I don't think it should be that hard to work across the aisle and just make some small adjustments to existing law that can hopefully bring change sooner than later. So I have a platform laid out on my website. That's always something I try to be as open about as possible. I don't try to defer to typical kind of talking points. I think the average voter might not be that engaged, but that doesn't mean that they're not intelligent. And so I've kind of been told a lot. I need to tone down how I talk about issues, especially when I'm writing. I can just go on and on. But I think really just laying out how I see it, the solutions that are there, is just a really different way to approach running that I'm not really seeing out there anymore. I didn't really prepare a speech. I just wanted to come and talk to myself, or talk about myself, introduce myself, and then really, as I said at the start, this is about service. It's about representation. It's about getting out and talking with people, hearing what issues are affecting them the most, what their concerns are the most. So I try to take as many questions and reserve as much time for questions as I can. So whether it's personal, just about my background, about specific policy positions, about how I plan on campaigning, whatever it is, feel free to start asking some questions.
Would you stand up if you have a question, and then I'll give the mic to you? Okay. You did stand.
I'm Joe Morgan from Woodley. I'd like to ask you how you plan on campaigning. The range is the hardest nut to crack. I worked twice with Jen Schultz, and she was in every community in the district and didn't make a dent. I don't know how, I'm trying not to be negative, but that's a big nut to crack.
Yeah, so when I started campaigning, I started running pretty early, and it was June. And at that point, was, let's just get out and talk with groups and see what happens. And I think every time I go and talk with groups, I can see a lot of energy, I see a lot of interest, I get a lot of good feedback, but that never really turned into growing the campaign. And so that was something I learned pretty quickly. And now from this point, especially moving forward, it's about getting people to show up to the caucuses and growing the campaign in a way that you need to. Money is going to be part of it, more volunteers and all of that. So I just announced this week a campaign manager, Brett. He's a Marine veteran, has an interesting background, and him and I are going to be working on strategy on all of those factors. So, you know, I don't want to necessarily get into individual strategy, but what I really want to talk about is how I think I can offer a different sort of vision and a different sort of view of what a politician is like, and that is what I think can really make the difference. And
Did you learn anything from Jen Schultz when you talked to her?
early on, I talked to Jen Schultz just a little bit, you know, are you running again, that sort of thing. And I haven't talked to her recently, but I think especially with this campaign taking off, I intend to spend some time and getting some info from her.
Be a good resource.
Yeah.
So I am Bruce Marshall. I have 3 questions. First is, how would you write a bill of impeachment in the House against Trump? And the second is, imagine it's a TV sounder, you interview, and you have your first 3 minutes to sell yourself. How's that going? And the third is, what under billboards?
So one of my concerns with Trump right now is all of this backdoor cryptocurrency and payments being made to his new family business ventures. And I think that all of that really needs to immediately get investigated and potentially would lead to an impeachment. And I think this area, unlike the prior impeachments, are the things that every American is upset about. The millionaire and billionaire class just paying their way through an unfair process. So that's where I would look into. I'm really concerned about all that's happening there. And then introducing myself briefly, I think it's 2 things, right? So one, I'm a new leader and I have a vision and I want to take action, as I spoke about earlier, in these common sense ways. And Pete Stauber keeps on complaining about inflation, keep complaining about all of these issues, but he's seeking his 5th term in Congress. So where has he been and what has he done to fix all these problems that he continues to complain about? Let's bring a new vision and new leadership to change these issues. And I think then that's what the billboards are, just a vision of new leadership, taking action, and if it were to be an Stauber billboard, it's about him not doing anything while still seeking a 5th term.
I was still working on Camera Woman Man TV. I was trying to go off.
Hi Kyle, I'm Steve Steve Corby from Cloquet. I hope I won the award of traveling the furthest to come and see it today, did I? No, maybe not. But interesting that you're from the southern part of the district. And, you know, almost every candidate we've had has been from the Duluth area or
Was
whatever.
that Republican from Cyle?
He might have been, yeah, the one over starting.
The one after.
Chip Quebec.
Cramer.
He might have been, yeah. But I think the first question was right on, and that you're, you know, having a big challenging time. Schultz was a state legislator, well-known, had her name out there. Not popular on the Iron Range because of her programs and that, and yet they knew her type thing, and yet she got beat by, what was it, 15 points, a lot, you know, so I don't wanna say it's overwhelming, but you do have a lot to do. And I don't know what is the best way, I wish I could tell you suggestions of, you know, where to place an ad, where to do things to get your name out there and get people familiar with you, but we all hope, and we're all pushing for you, and we'll try to help you type thing, but it's tough. It's gonna be tough to beat that in that case. You know, all he does is piss me off every time I read his email answers to my questions and that he's, you know, he's no good for us. He hasn't done a damn thing, you're right. The one bill that would have helped Duluth, the can of worms, like, he voted against that. You know, and then he came out and he was there at the bridge dedication type thing too. So I'd say, take any help you can get from the north part of it too. And I'm glad to hear you're involved with unions because that's big union territory, but it's changed. It used to be union and Democratic territory. Now it's union and Republican territory. It's the Trump, the nutcase, I mean, I don't know, it's getting long, isn't it? I think the question is, you know, what can you do to beat the overwhelming odds? That's kind of piggyback on the very first question too.
Yeah, it's understanding the reality of everything that you said. Like, it is a challenging district, it's a rural district, the unionized or working class has become more red. And when I really try to talk to people, not insult people for having a different idea or different perspective or background than I, and really just engage and discuss the issues, I think a lot of times there's room for agreement. And I see tons of headlines about Trump and about Stauber that, you know, make me angry, and I just want to immediately turn around and say, you know, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. But I also need to try to read between the lines and understand why people like what's being said, and be open and honest about that. So just recently, again, it was just kind of Trump off the cuff remarks, but he was talking about insurance, and he wants to get rid of Obamacare and make all these changes. And it's just like, okay, well, what's your plan? You still aren't saying what you're gonna do, so say something. But then he starts talking about premiums going up and insurance companies still making billions of dollars of profits. And I'm like, that's why people like him. That people that start from a spot where they like him, it's because he inserts stuff like that the average person does care about. And it has to address those issues. And if that's something that Trump really agrees with and really believes in, then trying to work through those issues and being open to working with those issues. I think when it's really important issues that we need to stand our ground on and object to, especially on lawfulness, you can do that, but stuff still needs to get done.
Robert supporting too many of the asinine things he's doing, but, you know, he's not campaigning against Trump, but it ends up being against Trump because Robert is supporting him.
Yeah.
I guess what I've been hearing is, not a right, everybody's been hearing it. It has to do with one word, affordability. With almost everything. Out of the G20s that came out to bring one country have socialized medicine. You know, we are out of the top 20 in the world. And they're not going under, they're still there. Plus, when you come to, like, you talk about insurance and everything, it's outrageous. So my point would be, is that you have to talk to the people about affordability. They have to bring this last 20 years that I worked, I worked union, retired teamster. We never really had more than the cost of living raise. When a house is 400,000, new vehicle is 50,000, 60,000, plus they have to pay insurance, I mean groceries. So the tariffs have to go to zero. I mean, I don't know anybody who would not agree with that. But I really think that to get the other people, especially, you know, we talked about going up on the range, perfect affordability, to really help.
Yeah, I agree, and one of the struggles with that topic is, well, you can address affordability, but what does that mean? What are the policy positions, and how can you talk about those in a persuasive way, especially in a district like this? And I think my background is investigating corporations and what they do to harm people, and so I lay out on my website that we are seeing price increases and price increases, but it doesn't reflect that it's costing the company more to do what they're doing. They're increasing their profits when they had record profits the year before.
Well, you've heard Dan Price before, right?
Of what?
Dan Price, he has a corporation. He started about 10 years ago. Minimum was 70,000. Now it's 85. He's not going to, he's a multi-billion.
He's paying his people.
Yeah, the janitors,
Yes.
it's 85 a year. So you are correct when it comes to corporations going a little bit too far. That's okay.
Yeah, I mean, and that's exactly it. I want to see a corporation not get away with buying hundreds of millions of stocks, of their own stocks back, and then reselling them just so the current shareholders are getting more money. Instead, it needs to be the people with the boots on the ground actually doing the work that are getting those hundreds of millions of dollars through increased benefits, bonuses, all of that sort of thing.
How do you make that change from Congress?
So I lay it out on my website, and I should memorize it a little bit more. I try to kind of go through the technical policy position, but there's certain restrictions, like if a company's going to try to increase their prices by 10–15%, they need to explain what that is. Otherwise, they're barred from making that price increase. There needs to actually be some sort of substantive justification. And then certain tax credits or relaxing taxes on companies that are actually paying their employees a bigger share of their profit margin. And encouraging more systems like employee share programs, ESOPs, all of these sorts of ways that we see kind of smaller organizations, cooperations, and all that sort of thing benefiting their workers more, applying that onto the larger corporations and just preventing the entire C-suite's goal is just to increase the stock price and held to whatever effect that has on the employee and their families.
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment about affordability. Certainly has become a major issue. But historically, looking at the elections and what I've observed in my long term, you get pretty long in the tooth, more. I think that you need to, whoever is running, needs to recognize that there are a great many issues. And a lot of people will ultimately vote based on one particular issue that's bothering them at that time or troubling them at that time. So obviously, you need to, I think whoever is running needs to collectively I'm very opposed to the extremes on both ends, because I just think that takes us down rat holes that just skewer everything. So I would like to see a candidate that is taking a look at all the issues. And certainly there are some that are more powerful and more important at any given time. But I once took an online, it was a poll, and a friend of mine who, at that time, we would get together and he was a hardcore Republican, and we argued, but we always, argued politely. And he said he's the one that put me onto this poll that they took, and it was a questionnaire based on all the different issues. And it was when you came out of it, it ranked you on a sliding scale between the hardcore left and the hardcore right. Well, he felt that he was pretty far left, but he came out just to or pretty far right, I'm sorry. He came out just to the right of center. I took it. And I came out just to the left of center. And when you start looking at all the different issues, I think if we're gonna win this thing, we've gotta carry the bill. That's gonna be the deciding factor. And to do that, you're gonna have to, hit the middle ground as much as possible and not give up and not give in to things, but to get there as closely as possible to appeal to the left and also as much of that middle as you can get.
Yeah, and so I'm seeking the DFL party's endorsement. And the DFL party currently has a platform, and so when it comes to that platform, I'm going to agree with most of the issues. It's not a requirement that I agree with all the issues, but most of them. And I've had a lot of different discussions with people that say you have to be more moderate to win this district, or actually there's a lot of people that are Trump-Bernie voters, so maybe you have to be more progressive. And I try to find what that looks like, what that balance is, and try to walk some line, and then I realize that I'm walking a line that's not what my values are, what my policies are, and at the end of the day, it's not about being more progressive, more moderate. It's about trying to address the issues that people have, talk about them in an open way, an honest way, explain my background and my understanding of them, and then at the end of the day, be that person that the electorate can trust to do the right thing when the vote comes, to do the right thing when it comes to drafting the legislation.
My name is Cyle Corby, and I started the Indivisible group in Carleton County 1 year ago in 3 days. 3 days and 1 year ago. And Moose Lake is our largest committee, and they have almost 100. And we haven't quite been a year, but we have almost 900 people. Prior to this, I worked on several campaigns, Democratic campaigns. And up from the cities would come 20-somethings that told us how to run the campaign, at which point I had to sit down and shut up, which I don't do well. And so it is good that you are able to seek the Democrats' endorsement, but still be your own person. And I like where you were going with your answer with most people are in the middle. I mean, that's what Pete Radosevich said. He lost twice, once by 600 votes and once by 200 votes, right? And he was a middle player. He was very much a middle player. So I understand the need to be in the middle, but what I like what you insinuated, and tell me if I'm wrong, is you said, it sounded like you said you had to be, I gotta be me. I know I'm like, I just want to say, sorry. It sounded like you needed to be yourself and really get that across, and I like that. And I think that it's different because of what indivisible groups have done. On the second No Kings Day, which was October 18th, CD8, so that's for the voters that are in this entire district, had 15,000 people that had signed up. And we all know that we get 3 times that show up at our protests. And these are not Democrats. These are people who either were not that active before or since. And so I think it's different. I think it's different now. I think that our togetherness has brought something more to the campaign.
Yeah, I see, so many people, they go to work, they come home, they're tired, and they have to do their housework, and they're just not engaged in politics. They might see some headlines here and there. And so, again, I am seeking the DFL endorsement, but all of a sudden when you throw the Republican Party name in, the Democrat Party name in, there is a group of people that just automatically discredit that. And I have seen through the indivisible groups where it is more issue-based, not party affiliation, there's a lot of success with that. And so I'm just always trying to talk to those people. And even when I get attacked, I try to, say, hey, yeah, I'm seeking endorsement, but here's what issues I care about, what issues do you care about. A few days ago, somebody commented on one of my Facebook posts that Democrats are lower than sewer scum or something like that. And I was just like, okay, well, what do you care about? What are your issues? And he listed out a whole bunch of questions. I took the time to answer them. And he just had a respectful response. Thanks for laying that out. Maybe I don't agree with you on everything. And we're just really lost from that today. Also, I made a comment. My oldest daughter's name is Corbin, and we always just call her Corby. So you keep on saying Corby. Yeah.
Everybody in the family's name is Buddy, so they call themselves what they all call for.
I just wanted to say, my name's Pam, and I'm new to Moose Lake, we lived in Duluth. And many people have tried to go against Stauber, and at the last parade that we went to, when the candidates come walking and et cetera, you have a semi full of people and 2 cars behind it. So my point is, it doesn't, to me, unfortunately, I think there are too many people that are heavily rah-rahing Trump and Stauber, and they just don't take the time to look at the issues. So it doesn't matter if you're a good man or a good candidate if you don't, I don't know, get a semi out there, get a billboard out there, get up on the range, get where you're not getting the vote. You have to get out there, because otherwise it's gonna be same old, is what I'm afraid of.
Get on the train and start screaming from the back of the booth.
Sounds like all us don't.
Yeah, my goal is to try to hit as many of these communities that I can. Down by me, there's a library system of 14 libraries, and so we're working on scheduling all of these little communities, just their public libraries on the weekends. Bring your kids, do whatever, and just attend and hit those groups. When it comes to billboards and bigger sorts of stuff like that, that takes money. And so that's something I do need to get better at when I'm at an event like this. I like to talk to people, I like to talk about the issues. Spent several months doing that, and then had a good reception, but I wasn't at these groups asking for the money line or the next engagement step. So I'll take a second to kind of do that. So one, in seeking the DFL endorsement, it is the Democratic Party. You attend your local caucuses and you can say who you want to be the candidate, commit to be a delegate, all those sorts of things. So that is February 3rd. A lot of the local DFL units and other groups are starting to host caucus training. At the end of the day, you just show up and say what issues you care about and whether you support a candidate or not. And then the delegates go to the congressional convention, which is in April. And I don't know why, maybe I just really lucked out this year, but the convention is in Cyle. So it's basically, yes, it's at my local high school. So yeah, that was kind of fun when I heard that, because I was just expecting some place in Duluth. My website is just www.cyleforcongress.com. You go on there, it's pretty obvious how you can donate. There's also an option to enter in information if you want to volunteer. We have a sign-up sheet in the back, and it's not to instantly blast people with tons of text messages or emails. We just want to reach out and see whether you want to engage or not, what sort of volunteer opportunities you might be interested in, and especially early on, offer more than just, hey, can you just phone bank for me? Can you make calls for me? And try to find some individual people's special areas and apply kind of their interests on the campaign. Also, these little flyers on the back are meant to be postcards. So an idea is we can go to an event like this, you can take home the flyer, but also you can take home 5 of these and throw on a stamp, send it out, and just tell more of your friends, neighbors, family about the campaign. You don't even have to write about the campaign on there. You can just, hey, hope you have a good weekend.
Kyle, my name's Tom Karras. I live outside of Carlton. I'll take this young man's challenge over here as far as traveling the furthest to get to Moose Lake.
No, we still got your beef from Focus.
Can't hear you.
Good thing.
Still arguing who came the farthest.
So, anyways, I'll give you kudos right now for being the first campaign website to actually make reference to the wonderful fossil fuel resource depletion tax credit. And if you can be able to get that into nice, easily communicative words, that would be a great thing for your campaign. But reading from your website, it says I support American energy independence, which will foster. I will not chase arbitrary climate targets. And I'm wondering if that is something that you believe in, that the targets that have been based right now are arbitrary as opposed to science-based, or is that a DFL line that you feel that you have to toe?
So I've actually been communicating with a sustainable energy engineer, and that was a line that he didn't really like either. When I'm writing these out, it's usually late at night after I put my kids down for bed, so whether the language is 100% perfect or, you know, it always can be adjusted and changed. And my thought when I wrote that is it's getting attacked a lot more than I anticipated, and so it probably does need some changing. And it's not that I think the climate targets right now are arbitrary. I think that sustainability is really important. We need to do as much as we can, as fast as we can, especially looking at my 3-year-old and 4-month-old. I think about their future and that we just can't keep consuming fossil fuels at the same rates that we have. But I think what I was trying to get at there is that for a lot of people that aren't immediately supportive of climate change and sustainability policies, they look at these targeted numbers as abstract and not really part of what their life means. Reducing climate change by X Celsius by this year. I think the scientists and all of the research supporting that is correct, and it's important that we meet those goals, but that figure is arbitrary to the average person's day-to-day experience in life. And so what sorts of policies can we implement? How can we talk about these issues that are actually a part of a person's day-to-day life and make them really think about the issue to impact that change? And I know we just spoke a little bit before that you do some of this work, so I'd certainly be glad to communicate with you, work on some of that language, and address that policy issue, because it's just one of those wedge issues that immediately the right is all about, we need our gas guzzling cars, the left is all about wind energy, and just the argument kind of gets lost in the nether. And I think it's just such an important issue issue, we can't just keep on relying on the same old rhetoric and the same way to talk about it.
I'm glad others saw that. Good luck.
It's been pointed out. Those energy engineers are very particular.
They're engineers too.
Yeah, exactly.
This man is good.
So my home insurance agent gave me a good way to explain climate change. He said that Minnesota has the second highest home insurance rates in the country after Florida, which has all the hurricanes. But in southern and central Minnesota, because of hailstorms, Minnesota has very high home insurance rates. And it didn't used to be that way. We're getting more hailstorms, and eventually we're going to start getting hailstorms up here. And it's getting to be a lot of places now where in the country where homes just can't get insurance. And it's going to make it very hard for people to afford homes. So that's one way that climate change affects people's bottom line.
Yeah, exactly. And that just goes back to the point of that line on my webpage is we can talk about sustainability and climate change in everyday people's life, how it's affecting their home insurance, not saying we need to meet some goal, which again, the background of that goal is correct. It's backed by science, but I just don't think it's that persuasive to the average person. Another fun kind of anecdote I've seen, and I'm not going to express it that well because I just saw it on a video once, but it was imagine if our cars, when they were first invented, late 1800s, were all electric, and now we have this great new technology of combustion engines, and somebody's trying to sell this to you and talking about needing to fill it up with an explosive fuel every couple of days, and that it gives off an exhaust and affects the air that we breathe. And it just starts to sound so ridiculous when you start to talk about it in that way. I should try to find that video again because it's kind of funny. But yeah. Do we know if there's any Zoom questions? Any people online that want anything?
Not so far, but I'll ask if they have any questions.
Okay. I don't want to forget the digital people.
Our co-leader asked you with all of the young people in schools and teachers and in schools and easy access to, and what happened to Annunciation Church with the shooting at that church school, and with knowing that most people in Minnesota, like 80%, approve of some sort of assault weapon regulation. Where do you stand on talking about that in this highly gun owner district? How are you gonna face that question? Because that's going to come up.
Yeah, and I've been asked about it before, and I'll be open that right now I don't have a policy laid out on it. Part of that is intentional, that I think it is a difficult subject and it's really important to a lot of people. A lot of people would support assault weapon bans or bans on high capacity magazines, all of those areas, but it's just such an easy way to get attacked, and I'm more into responsible and strong gun ownership policies than just immediately calling for bans, especially with school shootings and people who are using these weapons who weren't the original people that may have purchased them or used them. Well, if a kid is getting a hold of a dangerous weapon and using that, then I think we need to hold the parents accountable for allowing that access. And so finding ways like that would increase gun safety, just increasing liability for incidents, stronger penalties for when a weapon is used in